Okay.
Cosmoline.
Cosmoline Queens, all the day, all the hay. Welcome to the Surplus Boys channel. I am Nick.
I'm Pat.
And this is a dirt rod.
Garbage rod.
So this is 9130. Most people know what a 9130 is. If you showed up here, welcome to like probably the 1 billionth 9130 video ever put on the internet. So I'm going to try to talk about things that are a little bit more nuanced. Probably going to get tismed out a little bit and back and forth.
We'll try not to.
And yeah, not get too much into all the other things because there's actually a living boatload of information on these things now. And some of it gets a little mashed potato-y just because they didn't keep good track of everything as they were being done. Potato, yes. So anyway, 9130. What the heck is a 9130? It is the Soviet Union's primary rifle from 1930 to 1945, pretty much. And it was used in rear echelon for quite a bit. And
sniper variants are still being used today.
Sniper variants. There's a bunch of different variants for these. We'll actually have videos on those at some point. But pretty much what this is, trying to make a long story short, originally the original Mosin, first of all, it's not a Mosin Nagant. It's not a Mosin Nagant. It's not any of that. It's actually just Mosin's rifle. That's what Russians, Soviets, Ukrainians, all the other different little tisms of that time, that's what they call it. It was Mosin's rifle. But originally it's called the M1891 three-line rifle. So that was the original Imperial Mosin. It's about 3 or so inches longer than this. It would have had some different things on it, different rear sight, different front sight, different kind of furniture, clasping mechanisms. But pretty much everything back here was the same. You'd have hex receivers instead of these rounded ones. So that's where it comes from. At some point, Soviet military in the 20s decided to say, hey, we don't really need these long pokey sticks, so we can probably cut this down a little bit, and instead of doing what everybody else was doing, which was establishing kind of like a short rifle, which would have normally been about 24 inches, so think the 1903, think the SMLE, Lee Enfield.
Car 98K.
Yeah, Car 98K. A lot of people were cutting down their guns. Some were even going to just straight up carbines. Like the Italians were just like, we're just going to mostly use the carbines for most things. So Russia, though, kind of was a bit of an outlier. They said, hey, we have a Dragoon rifle, which is used for people who, if you don't know what a Dragoon is, they pretty much ride into the battle on horseback, and then they get off the horse and then fight. They don't sit on the horse and fight. That's what a Dragoon is. So the Dragoon rifle literally was only a slightly chopped down version of the Imperial Mosin, which was like 31 inches long of a barrel. So this is a 28-inch barrel. So they just kind of like, we're already doing this, so let's just do that and keep it that way. And they changed a couple little things to make the machining process easier. And then you're going to notice in a lot of videos with Russian stuff, most things they're going to do is to make things way easier to machine and way cheaper to machine, because that's how they do everything. So anyway.
Unlike the Japanese who just didn't have materials.
Yeah, exactly.
I handled a last stitch Arasaka yesterday. Oh boy.
Oh boy.
You think this butt plate is fitted nice?
No.
Oh, it's like a 1/4 inch on both sides.
Yeah, it's just straight pot metal.
Oh my god, it was terrible. There's some.
It's made out of an old helmet they found, you know.
Honestly,
like
I wouldn't. Somebody sporterized it.
Yeah.
I would never. And you couldn't close the bolt.
Terrible.
You physically couldn't close the bolt.
Oh my god. So the 9130, the changes. Originally, the Imperial guns had a different sight that was set in Arshins. Up here, they had a blade front sight instead of this hooded post one. Different ways of how the top handguard sits. Same thing with like the slings and stuff like that, and how the stock was done. A lot of little tiny things. Machining processes in the actual action itself, and that's pretty much it. And it was a little bit longer. So pretty much, Soviet Union was like, all right, let's just kind of centralize this into something that's a little easier. And this is what came out. Originally, they were in hexagonal receivers, just as the Dragoons and the Imperial ones were.
Which look cooler.
They do look cooler, always.
And now actually command a high price.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually.
Just because they have a little bit of extra metal right there.
It's actually kind of insane.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually, I think that's just...
That's just today's day and age,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I think that's the collector's fault.
Honestly, yeah, because... not even. I mean...
Form. Like, as a collective?
Yeah, it is. It is our fault. And they got sold for so cheap back then.
Or it's the deep FUD. It's the deep state FUD.
Yeah, you're not
Probably
wrong.
the deep state FUD.
Also, not for nothing, when you could buy one of these for $100 from Cabela's, they didn't care what they gave you.
Yeah, exactly.
You could get a hexagonal receiver, you get a round receiver, you get whatever.
Yeah.
So
nowadays, if they're scarce, not really, but
yeah,
it becomes a little different.
Yeah, this went from a $100 rifle to a $500 rifle.
So anyway, so this shoots the 7.62 by 54R round. It is a very antiquated round.
Still used today.
Used today, actually. It gets rim lock. Anyway, so these were made by two different factories, two different towns, actually, Ishevsk and Tula. So those are...
We all know Tula.
Yeah, we all know Tula.
Because they make ammo
Yeah, Ishevsk actually was the top dog in making these. Ishevsk was ridiculous in making these guns. They
were pumping them out.
Yeah, they were so pumped about making these things. It was ridiculous. I'm not going to give you all the production numbers. I do have some paperwork in front of me.
Side note, he showed me them before filming, and I just went,
yeah, there's a lot. But at the top highest amount that Ishevsk actually made was in 1942. They made almost 3 million, just 9130s alone. So this exact configuration, they made 3 million in 1 year. So that's absolutely ridiculous.
To give you an idea, the U.S. made 3 million M1s in the course of World War II.
Yeah, so just kind of shows you
I think I could have that wrong.
The level of ridiculous methamphetamines that was just going on in those factories.
This is why they were so cheap. Yeah. To buy as a surplus rifle.
Yeah, so they made a crap ton. Total production across the board of, I think, all Mosin variants is about 37 million different types of guns. So that's all the carbines, that's the Imperial ones, that's these, that's the sniper variants.
Is that the most rifles made by a single country? I think it is.
Yes. Hey, before we go any further on the video there, I just want to ask you one thing. Is there some stuff in this video that you kind of think you're interested in, some of the little knickknacks that go with the guns or some of the books? Well, there's a place for that, and we have some of the links in the description to get those things. So if you are looking for any of the little tiny things, the accoutrement, as they say, for those pieces, for those guns, or if you want books and information that gives you a better deep dive, as they say, on the info, then those are in the description. We would really appreciate if you go and do that if you're interested, because that helps us out to be able to process and give you the stuff you're seeing now. So appreciate you. Ain't gonna take any more of your time. Enjoy the video. But pretty much the overall length of this was 48.5 inches without the bayonet, because you got to remember Soviet doctrine was the bayonet. It's on all the time. Without the bayonet, it is 8 pounds and 13 ounces. So it's a pretty heavy gun. With the bayonet, it's almost 10 pounds. So bayonet's pretty heavy.
Really? The bayonet's that heavy?
Yeah, it's almost 10 pounds. Yep. Imagine adding like another pound.
Wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. So then...
Because it doesn't feel heavy.
No, yeah, it doesn't feel heavy, but, you know, and once you put it on the gun, you're firing, you're like, yeah, that's kind of heavy.
But no. The 1917.
Yeah, 1917's heavy. But that gun's ridiculously heavy to begin with.
Nobody tells you how much more front heavy that makes that rifle. That rifle is so much more front heavy with that.
I think there's a lot more going on up front.
There is with the nose cap and everything.
If you think about it, like this four-stock, this is like a stick.
It is. The 1917
it's very
is like
tiny.
in 03.
The 1917, even though it is shorter by like, what, 2-3 inches, 4 inches?
Yeah.
There's a lot of chunk in the wood, and there's a lot going on. I think the barrels on these barrels are actually quite skinny. So one thing I forgot to mention beforehand, before we brought you in closer, is about the stock, actually. These were made of Baltic birch. So that is, most stocks you would think of are made of walnut. They were made of birch. Birch actually has a little bit of science here, a tendency to absorb a lot under certain circumstances, moisture and stuff like that. So the reason why these are so ugly looking, kind of, with the lacquer finish on them, is because they had to do that. So birch actually needed to be, what do you call it? it needed to
Is
be,
it kiln dried?
well, no, it needed to be dry. Every single stock needed to be dried. It needed to be
I know nothing about
oiled
woodworking.
down. It needed to be sealed with this special type of sealant they use. I don't know what it's called. It absorbs deep into the wood.
Probably something that is probably not good for us.
No, not at all. And then there's that, and then they lacquered them and varnished them. So there's a long process of how these stocks were kept up. And there was some walnut stocks actually, but they were only used for snipers. That is the only case you'd ever see a walnut stock on one of these, is if it was an ex-sniper or if it is a sniper. But those are extremely uncommon.
Continuing to learn more.
Yeah. Other little tidbits on this. Actually, a little bit of nomenclature for these. For Soviet technical data, I guess if you want to call that
The
something.
technical data package.
Technical data. These actually have their own codes. Each gun model has its own code. So the code system goes as this. There's a number set that's in the beginning, there's a letter set, and then there's a number set. So the number set for this is the number 56. That denotes small arms manufacturer. So any small arm, from this, the Papasha, the DP-27, the DT-28, or whatever one comes first, I forget.
Is that why there's so many of the Chinese stuff was Type 56?
I don't know.
That would make
But
sense though.
For Soviet nomenclature, it's 56, and then the next thing is a letter variable, which is it looks like a B, but it's actually a V. It's pronounced like a V, pretty much. B, and then a dash, and then the gun specific number. So this gun specific number is 222. So in technical data, if you say 56B222, that's a 9130. So there's other codes. I'm not going to go over all of them because there's a little crap load, crap toad. Anyway, so yeah, there's there's that. And actually, to give you kind of an idea, I'm going to be flying all over the place because there's a lot of information I had to cram before this. You would think, oh, the Russians had a 28-inch barrel. Why didn't they just go to a 24-inch barrel? They actually tried. They actually did that because in the process of having this, and then they went to the M44 production because they were like, really, we don't need this super long thing, because they realized most battle engagements aren't that far distance where they need this much barrel. So they were just like, well, we're just going to keep the carbine because we're making that. And that's kind of how the M44 came about. But they did try. They made about 5,500 rifles that were about 3 inches shorter, so about 25 inches, which is their short rifle. And that was in 1945. They tried that. Obviously, it didn't go anywhere because at that point, the SKS was kind of really being developed. The war was over. They didn't need to ramp up production. Then the AK starts coming out. So it's a lot of weird stuff starts happening where all these things are being developed at once, where it's really just like, why are we bothering?
You know what just occurred to me?
What?
So you talk about barrel length, and obviously shorter barrel you're going to lose velocity on a cartridge, and a longer barrel you gain velocity.
Wawa is delicious.
But
If you're not from this state, you don't know.
No, they have them in PA.
Yeah, Pennsylvania. If you're not from this side of the country, you don't know.
There you go. So my question is, back in the 40s and even earlier, they didn't have chronographs. So how'd they figure out muzzle velocity? Like, oh, that one went through gym faster. What did they do?
All right, guys, we're a little bit closer now, and we're gonna take a nice tiddly bit on the tiddly bits of long tiddly bit.
And this is
Yes, and the TISM. So, all right, now we have our 9130 closer. I can kind of show you some things on this. This was an Arsenal refurbished after the war. First things first, the garbage bolt, which this one's actually very nice. No stinky boom booms in there. And might as well, since we have this, we're going to take this out. Put that off to the side for now, but kind of show you. So this does have, I think, the toe repaired, as you can see the line there on the stock. So this is a separate piece than the main piece of wood. Typical metal butt plate for bashing in skulls and whatnot. A nice, there was a serial number on that. They, in typical Russian fashion, crossed it off and put another one on. And so pretty standard, straight grip stock, blah, blah, blah. Here's your magazine, trigger, whatnot. And here is your very, very nice and slim receiver. So that's one thing that the Mosin is kind of known for, is that the receiver itself is very, very thin. If you look at any other guns, you look at a 1917, you look at a 1903, you look at any Mauser of any derivative, Krags, you look at anything, Enfields, the receivers, especially in the back, are very wide. It's because of how the locking lugs match up to the to the chamber and everything, and the actual locking surfaces. And we'll show you that when we actually get to the bolt. More typical Soviet stuff, that was a number that they scratched off and put a new one on. Import marks, blah, blah, blah. This is actually a Tula-made gun, 1940, with the star and the arrow. So these are in meters, goes out to 2,000 meters, which is quite optimistic. I would say the gun can do it, but I highly doubt you're hitting anything. And this is kind of where you see more of the refurbishing, the shellac they would have put on this. And also, here, these are the more common style you would see, especially for World War II. This is the easier type of band to make. That's more like its own spring. There was ones that were made with, what are they called? There's actually screw-on style that has like a little screw piece that holds it in place. And then up here, same thing as on the buttstock of the rifle. And band, and then the front nose cap, and the cleaning rod, which threads in place. And this is the 9130 style sight, which is a center post with a hood. And what kind of most of these, well, this one's actually not counterboard, but a lot of them did get counterboard. So I'm kind of wondering why, because if this was 1940, it would have saw action, but unless they just completely replaced the barrel on it, I don't know. I can't tell of anything on that, but yeah, that's pretty much that. And here is the doo-doo bolt of all the doo-doo bolts. This one's actually not too bad, but to kind of show you why the receiver's so thin on these is because as the bolt goes forward, the locking lugs are facing up and facing down, and when it actually locks in the gun, they face left to right. Most other guns, any other bolt gun, besides I think a select few, do it the opposite way. So as it goes back and forth, they are left to right, but when they lock into the gun, they're in a vertical position, like so. So that's kind of why this is so thin, and the reason why they did that is because to save metal. It's literally just a cost-saving thing, but it's kind of weird because it's not a cost-saving thing, because when they designed this bolt originally and did this, they realized they had problems. This has problems. The locking lug has problems hitting the cartridges in weird ways, so they had to then think of something, and there's this. And this is the main part of the bolt that does a lot of things at once. It's ingenious, but it's also super unnecessary, and it's what makes the bolt feel like garbage, because this moves in so many different locations as you work the bolt that it's just way too much air in between these pieces and way too much air or places for things to get into. So these things are reliable, not really. So when the bolt, so this is in the cocked position, but when you were to load the gun, it would be down like this. And if you notice it right here, this part is exposed, and there's this gap right here. So imagine if you took a big, gigantic, chunky amount of dirt and mud, put that right in there, and now you have to turn the bolt into there. It's gonna get stuck, and there's gonna be crap stuck in here, and it's not gonna want to open. So these aren't really that reliable. Yeah, you're not gonna convince me that they are. They do have major problems. If they don't get dirt inside of them and whatnot, they work fine, but they can get sticky very fast. Obviously, the tolerances are terrible. So how to take this bolt apart, which is part of the field strip, is you'll decock it, and then all of this stuff up front, plus the bar, comes right out. And so there's your firing pin. This can actually be adjusted. You can't over adjust it, so it'll pop primers, and you can under adjust it, so it will, do light primer strikes. So don't mess with that. Just kind of leave that part be. If you're going to do that, the cleaning kit screwdrivers do have a go and no go on the firing pin. So that's kind of useful. There's that. And then this part, so the actual bolt head itself, you want to go this way, and then you can pull this whole thing out. And that's pretty much that. The extractors on here usually don't take that off. And this is the infamous portion of the bolt that causes a lot of problems. So, kind of goofy. And then another thing to kind of do as like a field strip is the bottom of the magazine plate does come off. This little tab here, you pull it back, and you can actually pull up this. Another ingenious but also overly complicated piece is if you take the magazine spring, you compress it, you can pull this whole thing out and look through the gun and clean things out. This right here is actually, you know, dual functions in a lot of things that are ingenious, but if you look at any sort of Mauser floor plate and magazine spring, it's 2-3 parts. It's the follower, the actual like W-shaped spring, and the plate. That's it. It's not a plate, a screw, a spring, another arm, a pin, and this is a lot of different parts. But it works, I guess. But yeah, so that's that. And that's pretty much it. Very standard Mosin. Also, I got to put this bat together. So how to put this bat together can be kind of confusing, especially for people that don't know anything about them. So that channel goes to that notch, like that. You know, twist it all the way. So now you're going to take this entire piece, and so these flats will correlate with the flats on the firing pin. So as you put this in, you sort of got to line her up. So we'll kind of catch it, line it up. So that'll go there. That little piece notches into there. Once you have all that together, gotta hold it all together with your left hand, and then you're gonna recock the bolt by twisting it. And now it's together. And you pull the trigger, goes right back in. And that's it. Ain't that adorable? And I know you guys can't tell, but out of most Mosin bullets, this is quite the buttery smoothness. All right, so that's it. That's I guess our close-up of the standard 9130.
Weird. Did you hear
Yeah,
that?
I don't know what
Couple
I
of rats
hit.
you heard
Hit
flying
something.
through the air.
Yeah.
You hear? I was like, meow.
I probably hit the steel.
Probably.
Anyway, there's a little interrupter thing in here that's really stupid. You're not going to be able to see it at all, probably.
Kind of.
It's inside of there. So I'm going to load these one at a time and kind of show you that. Alright, so usually that's the top round. When you're loading from a stripper clip, you'll actually come to the point where you go to load it in, and this round, when it goes in, will get locked behind the rim there. So you have it like that. Get major rim lock, it's not going to come undone, so you got to dump everything out. But that little interrupter is supposed to hold that round in there. But usually when you're loading from a stripper clip, it doesn't do that.
I think it's really sick that you can kind of hear it fly through there.
Yeah.
It's really fucking
All right.
cool.
That's it. We'll get back to the actual sitting down part. Bye-bye.
I'm actually helping.
All right, so now we got you back away from us so you don't sneeze on us.
Yeah, we know you don't like being close up to us anyway.
Yeah, we smell. Anyway,
We get it.
so now that we got this back over here and you're over there, talk about conclusions. Should you buy one? That's usually our main question. Obviously, yes.
They're still
You
cheap.
should buy the one, depending on the price.
Yeah, they're still
Okay.
relatively cheap. They're
Don't-
still in that like $400 or $500 range.
Yeah, don't let the deep FUD.
Who's going to sell you this rifle for $1,000?
Do not. Okay.
9130s are
be
not
smart.
worth. Okay, hold on. Let me rephrase that. Specifically, 9130s are not worth $1,000.
No, they're not. Yeah, there's very, very few exceptions to the rule of price
Yeah.
on these. These shouldn't. 500 is your base average. I wouldn't even really go for anything above that. It's highway robbery.
Yeah, depending on depending on what it is.
Nowadays, it's 300 to 500.
Yeah.
That is your okay range. It would be greater if they were $100 again. I would say, especially for that form, this video is very haphazardly done. Just with the information, because there is a ton on these. But I'm also
See an Arsenal have a video on these?
I'm also not on 9130s, no,
Oh, okay.
because they haven't really touched on World War II yet.
No, that's right.
But
yeah.
there's a lot of information on these already, so I kind of came into this knowing, listen, we're not the only source. This isn't going to be the shittiest video. It's not going to be the best video out there, but I was trying to kind of go for things that were a little bit more niche into these.
That's the same thing I did with the M1 video, because
Yeah.
there's 1,000 M1 videos on.
Yeah, there's so much information.
internet.
So, there's different ways to digest it. And a lot of this information came from the internet, actually, and came from a couple of books. I recommend this book. It's pretty good. It's kind of short. And it does have a good bit. A lot of my really niche stuff actually doesn't come from that. I'm going to have to put it in the description. I think it's 9130info.org or something like that. That's where I got a lot of the really nitty-gritty stuff. And they have a lot of information on all the variants, a lot of stuff on the snipers and the scopes themselves, and even Pupashas and PPSs, and some other things, and SVTs. So they do have a lot of deep Russian information on those rifles for World War II.
Again, if you have an SVT, please lend it to us.
Yes, please. So I do recommend that. I'm going to put that in the description because I don't think they sell stuff. And I do recommend other books. This is like an old-timey book. So if you want to get a little bit more Red Army of the Great Patriotic War, 1941 to 45.
Honestly, some of your best learning comes from books like this. This
Yeah.
is just pictures with descriptions and a little bit of like a paragraph here or there. This is some of the best places, especially for reenactors.
Yeah.
This is
So-
some of your best places
But
to get
I guess
stuff
in the
from.
form of this, the YouTube video, if you're not into reading, I understand.
Yeah.
The amount of information we can give you is nowhere near the amount of information you can get from a book.
Yeah.
So-
like you have that one book that's on Mausers.
Yeah, I have a book
Yeah.
on it. I can never recite 100% everything in this. So go read a book, and go say to your mom I love you, and go have a good happy day. And we're gonna end this video because it's way too long. So like, comment, subscribe.
Ring the bell and join our Discord.
Yes, we have a Discord. Not a lot's happening right now because we're still kind of
Trying to figure it out.
That's mostly Justin's realm. So yeah, kisses, bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye bye.